Welcome to Sacred Strategy. It is so lovely to be here with you all. This is Sora Schilling. I am here as your energy business coach and your sacred strategist. And today, I want to share a little bit about how working on my highlights for Instagram really was a profound recognition and celebration of myself, my body of work, where it is that I have grown into and how this might be a really healthy exercise for you as well when it comes to needing a little boost of inspiration as well as validation and clarity around who you are, who you serve, and what it is that you do. So, I'm going to share with you a little bit about this journey. There are these moments in time, and I wonder if you feel this as well. These moments of time when you feel this inclination, this intuitive desire to work on a project, and you're not really quite sure why you have to do it. Now, for me as a projector, one of the things that I know and recognize about my work and how I work is that I get this boost of inspiration, and I have to at times pause and quietly work on it while still, of course, engaging with my clients and working on different aspects of my business. But I might not be as fully available to be visible on social media and all different sorts of outlets and platforms because I'm in this inspiration mode. Now, that doesn't mean that I go hibernate, not at all, but still, I'm very intentional and mindful around what my energy is and what I'm working on versus what I'm doing externally. And so when this started to occur, I had this feeling that if I worked on my Instagram highlights, which I knew I needed to revamp, that it was going to be a personal journey and exploration of understanding my medicine even deeper, understanding my ideal client avatar even deeper, and acknowledging and celebrating the clients that I hold so sacred and dear to me. So, if you're at a moment in your business where you need a little bit of life, where you need to feel as if you are inspired by what you do, you also feel this deep desire to go into a little bit of the archetype of a researcher and go deeper into understanding certain things about your business, which I highly suggest you do. Because as a business owner, as a sacred spiritual entrepreneur, it is so valuable and important to pause and to reflect, to dissect, to understand and synthesize, and then show up even more in a more meaningful way. Yes? So that's what I did with highlights. So let me go through what are the highlights that I did and why this was revolutionary to me. Maybe potentially it'll be for you as well. Okay. So I looked at these categories. I looked at the start here category, the Q&A category, the my free session or my freebie that I have, my paid offering, testimonials, and the podcast, which is this. Now, I also was playing with whether or not I wanted to share tips in highlights or if I wanted to share something else. And so I was playing with that. Okay. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about what I landed with, but just know that that's what I was looking at. So I actually started backwards. I started with firstly recognizing the podcast. Okay. It's something that I've been doing for a while. And I knew that I wanted to shift it and evolve it. And I didn't know what that meant. So I went down memory lane, looked at the evolution of my podcast, and also recognized that I wasn't going to necessarily update the highlights per se, but wanted to see where I wanted to go with the podcast. So that's what was the easiest part of it. I wasn't really needing to create more copy or create new graphics for it, but I did want to honor the podcast because it's really meaningful to me. I really love doing it. And also, I wanted to see where I wanted to go with it, which is this, which is adding the video component. It feels a little strange. It feels edgy to me. I at times get worried about whether or not I'm going to be consistent with coming on video like this. So there's a lot going on there. But also, why not be messy, go into it and start sooner than later rather than preparing for perfection? Yes? And so that's what happened when I looked at the highlights for the podcast. And then I created the little circle graphic for it. Easy, right? Done. I wasn't going into the hardest portion of it. It was the easiest, and it helped me have a better vision into 2026 as to what I wanted to do with the podcast. Great. All right. So the next part after that was I looked at my paid offer. And so instead of going from top down, start here to podcast, I went podcast and I worked myself up to the start here. And so the next one was, all right, what is my paid offer that I would love to create a highlight around? And it was my Lush Business Mastermind because that is the program. That is the thing that I absolutely love. I love helping my clients in the mastermind build their business and scale it from having 10, 12K months, having 100K in their business and scale it onward. That means that there's these foundational pieces that are required, right? Okay, so what does that mean? When I started to dive deep into the Lush highlights, again, this is a personal journey, it's an inquiry. And so I really needed to take a look and dissect the program itself. And so here was what I started to look at. The first thing was, what's the story behind why I even chose to have Lush Business Mastermind? How did it evolve and where is it going? I'm always looking at the journey ahead, not only looking in the past or staying in the place where the offer is, because how will I continue to grow and how will I continue to scale if I'm only looking at it right now, right? We want to look also into the near future. So I started to really understand my story as to why I even created this. And then my personal story around where I might have been stuck and why this is so valuable and important to me as a mission. And then lastly, what is my solution? What is my methodology? How is it that I show up in a mastermind that is different than someone else's mastermind? Again, not that one is better than the other, simply because it is my medicine. And so it uniquely is infused with the way I dance and weave with my clients. So I started to really craft that, right? Going on this exploration. The next was looking at, okay, based on my ideal client avatar, which I have done some extensive work on, and I have fallen in love with doing ideal client avatar work literally every other week and fine tuning it. The next was, okay, so Lush Business Mastermind, what is the problem that it's actually solving? And not just the fluff, not just it helps someone be better in their business, right? What does that actually mean? And so I really needed to hone in on the messaging and honor what it was here that I was helping my clients with, which here it was about really clarifying for someone their scattered messaging. For a lot of my clients, they enter in being like, I'm really amazing at what I do. I have been in my business serving at least 10 plus years, but I can't even tell people what it is that I do. Right. I also want to make sure that they know that systems are super sexy and that having a sovereign sales system can be really, really nourishing to our nervous system, as well as the fact that strategy and sacred strategy is important, but not enough if you don't have your soul and your essence and your spiritual practices merged into the equation of who you are. And speaking about circular sacred leadership and what it really means and how do we deepen into space holding. These are all the things that makes my mastermind unique. So I really dove into that. The next was then honoring my Lush framework. I have a framework, and how can I make sure that other people begin to understand what is that Lush framework? So I wrote that down. Then it was about who is this for, right? So again, I have moved on from the idea that I'm from everyone and that I want to help everyone. That's not the case. I don't have the capacity. I'm one person. And also, people who are ready for me are the ones that are ready to work with me. I can't push that or manipulate that in any way. So, getting really clear about who it is that I'm serving and if they're ready, what can we mark as a definite understanding as to when they're ready to enter into this experience and when may they not be ready for this experience. And then also, what makes Lush different? Can I really lay it out as to the difference between this mastermind versus something else? And then adding in my values, like the fact that I love intimacy. And then I finally then took some time to really pull out testimonials and case studies, love up on my clients, write down the specific results and where they were entering in from to make some powerful statements to help support potential new clients who are coming onto my feed and know nothing about me. And then lastly, I thought about what are some of the questions that a new person who doesn't know me might ask. And so I wrote those out. Now, you can see how these highlights now basically could be a sales page. It could be a pinned post. It could be a full Substack article. And what I did and my devotional act as a badass spiritual business owner here was to dive deep into the messaging component of this. So I hope that gives you some inspiration for yourself. You don't have to do this specifically just for highlights. It's something that I find even quarterly to dive into your ideal client avatar, who you are, how you serve, what you're doing, honoring the testimonials and case studies of your clients is really valuable information to have for so many different reasons. Okay, so then the next thing that I worked on was all right, if I wanted to explain to someone new how they might first work with me, I have a complimentary magnetic messaging activation session. And I wanted to explain what that was. So this is essentially one of my freebies, right? It's not a free lead magnet, which I do have one, but it is a free experience that I wanted to really highlight. And so that's what I decided to dive into. So I did the same thing I did with my signature offer of Lush, which was I started to really deepen into, okay, what is this? What is this magnetic messaging activation session, otherwise known as MMAS? And what is the problem it solves? Meaning, why would someone say yes to this call? And then getting very specific about who this is for and what actually happens in the session. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm not only thinking about me, I'm thinking about the person who might be struggling. And when they read this, they think, I can exhale because there is something here for me. Sora seems to really get where I am, and she might actually be able to help me on this complimentary call. So I'm always looking at what can I do to serve, but also who am I speaking to and how may this help support them? I also share why this is complimentary and then some testimonials to back it up so people know that I'm real. I'm a real person. I have worked with people. What does that mean? Right. And what are some of the breakthroughs that have happened? And then the call to action. Okay, so after I wrote all that out, and you'll notice I'm writing everything. I'm not working on the graphics yet. That's a different creative brain power. And so I'm simply diving into the research, investigating, thinking about things, synthesizing it, and then writing out what might become the captions or the graphic text on the actual images. Okay, so the next part was then thinking about some Q&As, knowing that the questions and answer bank that I was going to do would be something that I will add on slowly throughout every month, right? And so I didn't need to think about 20,000 questions to put up. I was thinking about maybe 3 or 4 that would be super helpful to start off with so that it's part of my highlights and it helps me anchor into how would I want to answer questions. How can my brain think about the questions that my community members have? And every time I have a call with my luminaries inside of Lush Business Mastermind, can I remember later to take a moment and write down any questions that might serve all of you in the larger community that I can then add on into my socials? And so I started to create that content bank by thinking about the different aspects of my messaging and my pillars of what it is that I truly do based on my Lush framework. So it's not out of the blue, but it's based on what I know to be true around how I can be best of service based on my methodology about how I help my clients. It's very specific in that way. Okay. So then the next thing I started to consider was, well, do I want to do tips? And I thought, well, that would be good, but I have got this other inclination. The reason being is I want to honor why people come to me. People come to me not only for the strategy, for the ability for me to share and dissect information in a more tangible, easeful, digestible way, but in addition, because love to enter into the energetic field. I love dropping people into the energy space. It's why I have devoted energy coaching school as well, right? I love helping coaches deepen into the energetic field and work from that space in the subconscious. And so therefore, I decided instead of having a tip section, I really wanted to have a section where anyone can drop in for just 15 seconds and be infused into the frequency of soulful business by honoring an affirmation or a prayer. And that is something that I love doing. And I also noticed that my community members really love it, that I've had a lot of feedback from it and a lot of comments and people sharing that they really enjoy listening to those affirmations on Reels. So I thought, you know what? I feel like that is part of who I am. So that's what I did instead. So I started to craft some, put them together, and knew that I was going to create Reels with them. Okay. And then last and finally was the start here section. The section felt so big. And so working on the tangible, specific ones led me up to then having enough content to create the start here. Now, the start here highlight I knew was the quickest way for someone brand new to get to know me in a matter of seconds, right? And so, therefore, I wanted to make sure that I had a story or a slide that was a hello, this is who I am. And I thought it was really important for it to be video so that they can see me, that they know that I'm here and that this is my background and this is what I look like and this is how I sound. Yeah. I often find that most folks who work with me, there's this resonance from the frequency of sound, that listening to my voice and feeling my energy helps them in this alchemical process begin to notice from a somatic and energetic standpoint around whether or not we are attuned and we can play together in the energy world and in the strategy realm as well. Okay, so then I did a little bit about me. So these are random facts that I find helps people know my day to day and my personal preferences around things. So I made sure that that was fun because a part of me is super youthful and playful as well. And I wanted that to come across in my stories too. Okay, the next then was being vulnerable around the truth around who I am, what I loved in my previous life, in all the different careers and how I've been, and where it is that I was going. And that there was a breaking point, a point where I needed to change. And I wanted to share that so that, again, we can be in a space of relationship where you get to know a little bit more about me. One of the things that I truly believe in my spaces is that I love being very honest and vulnerable about different things that are happening in my personal life. I'm not perfect. I'm messy, and I often share some things that are occurring so that other people have the opportunity and they have the permission to share all aspects of themselves inside of our group container. I then shared some testimonials and case studies around my clients that are inside of my Lush Business Mastermind. And I shared a little bit about what makes me different, who I am, and how I serve, and why the way I hold and my focus and value, which is on space holding and leadership and energy, how that could really help support you. And you might be looking for something like that. And you've been scouring the internet for a coach like this, and you haven't found one and maybe now you realize, there is one. It's by the name of Soar Schilling, right? Okay. I also talked a little bit about what I do as a coach from the lens of how do I solve some problems that my clients might have, and then a call to action around what they would like to do. And for me, it's about connection. So I want to make sure that everyone starts connecting with me and that we can start building a relationship, that I get to know you, and for us to organically go down this journey together. And then at some point, your spirit might be, and the soul of your business might be ready to join in on some fun inside one of my programs. So that's what I did. And then after I wrote everything out, I then started to create the graphics based on my brand. And I had a really fun time. I believe I spent maybe 3 days on and off in a period of 2 weeks working on this here and there, right? And then it came together, and I let my folks know on Instagram, listen, you're going to see a lot of me on stories. Don't get sick of me, but this is the reason why I'm doing it because I am trying to update my highlights. And the boost of engagement and people enjoying it was so lovely. I never once thought it was bothering people. I never thought once started to overcomplicate the fact that I needed to put all these up on stories in order for me to be on highlights. I didn't think about, okay, how many days do I have to wait in between? I just followed my flow and energy. And when I was inspired, I would upload them and put them up. And then once they were all put up, I then spent a little bit of time a couple days later, then putting the actual highlights together. But at the end of the day, the reason why I decided to do this was not only to update my highlights, right? If we look at this from a bird's eye meta view, the reason I did this was because I felt called before the end of the year to actually reflect back on my work, to envision where I wanted to go, to honor and celebrate everyone that was on the journey with me, to have some spiritual payment by taking time to dive into what it is that I do here. How am I serving? Really thinking about my ideal client avatar and doing that inner work and the business foundational work to understand the messaging so that I can be even that much more clearer when I'm here speaking with you. And so, I would love for you to consider whatever project you work on at some point this year, at least by the end of the year, to take a little bit of time, even go on a little CEO spiritual retreat, spending a weekend, diving into your client, understanding the market, celebrating where you were to what you've accomplished, what are the lessons you've learned, and how are you going to share yourself and what is your clear messaging? What is your clear offer? What is it that you need to do to clean up any confusion for your potential clients? Now, if that's through the project of highlights, so be it. If it's through the project of end of year reflection, yes, do that as well. All right. I hope that this was helpful. I'd love for you to subscribe, to leave a comment, share with your divine besties in business, and let me know how this is. I'm excited to continue trying out the podcast with a video as well. And I'm just going to keep getting messy and trying my best, and let's see how this works. All right. Speak to you all soon. Bye for now.